What's up, guys? Rick here with your DFS preview for this week's RBC Heritage. And as much as I would love to linger in an unbelievable Masters, the show must go on because we have another elevated event this week. Crazy stuff to have an elevated event immediately following the Masters. Absolutely stacked and on one of the most unique golf courses that we see on the PGA Tour schedule. I'll take you through the data-driven research process for this week, and we'll see where we end up. Let's jump into it. Here is the course key stats model for Harbor Town, which is where we play the RBC Heritage. And this is on my website, RickRunGood.com. Giant database for fantasy golf and golf betting. Everything you see will be from my website. So very unique golf course, Harbor Town. I mean, when you start looking through the names of guys that have won here or have had success here, it is very different than your standard PGA Tour event, which is kind of like, bomb and gouge and tee to green and whatever, right? It's just very, very different. So what we have here is a golf course that will truly mitigate driving distance as a skill set. The way that the fairways run, the way that this is claustrophobic in terms of the trees and the angles, it's going to be actually a pretty interesting contrast for a lot of guys coming from Augusta National last week, where it's fairly generous off the tee and you can kind of hit it most places without getting into too much trouble. Not here at Harbor Town, where it essentially takes driver out of the hands of most players. When you start looking at the key stats model, you'll see driving distance ranks 41st, which means there's only like 8 or 9 courses in the PGA Tour schedule that driving distance is less important. It's just not a factor. Would I prefer, if everything else was equal, would I prefer a guy who hits it further than someone else? Yes, but this model looks back at the types of players that have had success around here, and it is not a prerequisite to have a long driver or to have driving distance. What is much, much, much more important is driving accuracy, 11th, which means there's only 10 other courses in which driving accuracy is more important. I would even go a step further and say good drive percentage, which we'll talk about quite a bit as we go through this and when we run a model, because good drive percentage is a stat that says, did you hit the fairway? Or if you missed the fairway, did you hit the green in regulation or the fringe in regulation? Essentially, did you keep it in play? Right? That's what this says. And I love this one photo. I go back to this photo every year. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. If you're listening, I'm showing a photo of one of the fairways at Harbor Town, which kind of just shows you some of the unique challenges that you're going to have this week, where even if you are in the fairway, that does not necessarily mean that you have a straight shot to the green or a straight shot to the pin. There are a lot of overhanging limbs. There are a lot of dog legs, and the way that everything pinches in, not only do you have to be in the fairway, but you have to be almost on the correct side of the fairway. We've heard the quotes from players over the years about how much you need to kind of shape your shots and play to specific positions, and it's really that kind of game, right? It's positional golf. Play to that corner, then play to this side of the green, then play to that corner, then don't miss here, right? It's a really unique and interesting golf course that we don't see. It's certainly for precision and strategy over just power and bombing it around here. The other thing that you'll note is that strokes gained approach, as you can imagine, becomes incredibly important around here. There's only 3 other courses on the PGA Tour schedule in which strokes gained approach is more important. And let me remind you, strokes gained approach basically every week is the most important stat, right? It's so highly correlated by itself in terms of the raw value to success that when you see a high number like this, you're like, wow, that's wild. It's a little bit jarring. So think about this. If everyone is playing to the same locations, if everyone is playing positional golf off the tee, who does that benefit? The guys that from those spots now can be better than everyone else. So you separate yourself a lot here on the second shot. That's the way the statistics read, and it's kind of the way the eye test works as well around Harbor Town. So everyone playing to similar spots, and then the best approach players figuring it out. very small greens, 3,700 square feet on average, some of the smallest greens that we have on the PGA Tour. So you'll note that around the green play is an above average stat. You'll see more missed greens around here, but the difficulty of these around the green spots is fairly straightforward. You know, there is not a huge penalty to missing the green outside of you've missed the green. You're not going to have a lot of short game shots that separate the best players around the green from the worst players around the green. Everything's pretty much straightforward. It's not Augusta National, obviously, where you need to really rely on you have to have every single shot around the green, and you're just going to be like everything is such a high level of difficulty at Augusta National. This is probably the polar opposite of that, but you will see a lot of shots played from around the green. They just won't be as high leverage of shots. If you look at the scorecard, you'll notice it's a par 71, but we still have the 4 par 3s. So where do we make that up? Only the 3 par 5s. 2 on the front, 550-yard par 5 second, 569-yard par 5 fifth, and then 15. So you're getting a lot of par 4s and your standard traditional set of 4 par 3s that all of them play over 190 yards. So fairly straightforward scorecard here. That's how we get to the 71. So if we take everything that we've learned about this Pete Dye golf course and we distill it over the last 36 rounds of player statistics, who is the best player for Harbor Town? Bum, ba, da, bum. Well, just scroll down and you'll find that it's Collin Morikawa. Makes sense, right? Does this so after what we know about the eye test, what we know about the statistical analysis, absolutely makes sense that Collin Morikawa has the best adjusted course fit around here. You know, he is the only knock against him is he's not long off the tee, but he's basically tour average, a little bit worse than tour average. And that doesn't matter here. And then he turns into and he's like the best approach player in the world. So, and he's very accurate, which are the two things that are going to be incredibly important. So Collin Morikawa becomes your number 1 adjusted fit golfer. Scotty Scheffler's number 2. Scotty does it all. Let's be real. Scotty from tee to green is absolutely phenomenal. And when you're asking for that this week, Scotty's going to pop. Jon Rahm, Max Homa, Jason Day round out the top 5. Rory McIlroy has withdrawn from this event, so he just withdrew Monday morning. There was also the news that Will Zalatoris had surgery on his back on Saturday. Will Zalatoris is out for the year. We're obviously wishing him a speedy recovery and good health and good vibes going in the direction of Willie Z there. Rory McIlroy did not disclose the reason for his WD, just opted to not play this event. We're going to talk about some guys that, you know, like Tony Finau ranks pretty highly here in terms of adjusted fit. We're going to talk about him and his schedule leading into this, but should be a very fun week. Obviously, Jordan Spieth, our defending champion. I believe he did it in non-Jordan Spieth fashion. He lost strokes putting here last year and just kind of teed a green this golf course to death. So lots more to talk about. Let's jump over to the cheat sheet. The cheat sheet, let's go. 5 golfers over $10,000 led by our new Masters champ, Jon Rahm, $11,100. Scotty Scheffler, $11,000. Jordan Spieth, $10,400. Patrick Cantlake, $10,300. Collin Morikawa, $10,000. Obviously, they are all solid plays for this week, but you cannot play them all, so we are going to have to do a little bit of digging here. Let's start with Jon Rahm. And I don't love to play the narrative game with Rahm, but if there was ever a tournament that required more from a champion, there isn't. It's the Masters, right? Usually these guys go on media tours. They're on Good Morning America. They do all this stuff immediately after and in the morning. Like there's just a lot. Jon Rahm is an unbelievable tee to green player. I mean, I don't need to read you through the numbers, but he gained 14 strokes from tee to green at the Masters. In fact, I actually do. So this is, I do have the last 5 years now of Masters data with the shot link, the strokes gain breakdown. There is no official strokes gain data for the Masters, but it's being calculated from the shot by shot data. So I stand by it. It's very good. He gained 14 strokes from tee to green last week. He gained 12 at Riviera en route to his victory. Famous last words, right? I do worry a little bit about going back to Jon Rahm. He's only played here once. This is not a place. I think what's most interesting about this is we're getting this as an elevated event, and it's not a place where a lot of guys have played before or played consistently, at least of the top guys, right? So Rahm played here in 2020. 2020 was a completely different beast. 2020, this was one of the first 2 or 3 events out of the gate after the COVID shutdown. So everybody played. It was like major championship level fields. So everyone was there. T33 for Jon Rahm in 2020. When you start looking at him compared to the rest of his peers, he's not as accurate off the tee as like a Scotty Scheffler, a Patrick Cantlay, Colin Morikawa. He's more accurate than Jordan Spieth. So I probably skew a little bit away from Rahm. But again, these are all phenomenal players, and they're this price for a reason. Let's talk about Scotty real quick. I don't think Scotty's my favorite either, but it is worth pointing out that I don't know how many times I can say this about just how on brand Scotty Scheffler is. 13 strokes gained from tee to green. Last week, he lost 4 strokes putting. He still finished 10th. That Scotty Scheffler played like the worst golf we've ever seen him play last week, and he finished T10. It's just nuts. And whenever he's not going to be able to rely on, him being longer than everybody else, him being more accurate, but this approach play is second to none. And then his short game is obviously, probably better than everybody else's. I'm still stuck on the Masters. I typed in the Masters there. He has never played this event. Again, we're getting guys at the top with very little history around this place. The other 3, and especially the bottom 2, I think are more interesting. Spieth probably catches a little bit of steam this week, 10,400. He has that run late at the Masters last week. He's your defending champion. He's ball striking it well again, and we know everything that he can do. He made some comments about fatigue at this point in the year and playing a lot of golf and being mentally tired even before last week. And I'm wondering what that's going to take out of him, especially around a golf course that is so strategic like this one. But look at these stats. I mean, he has completely flipped the switch on approach play. He is putting better, though it is very, very ugly. And his short game is magical again. If you look at what he did here last year, it's very rare. He won losing strokes putting and losing a lot of them, 2.5 strokes putting. So there's only been a handful of like Duffner did it twice, I think, where he lost strokes putting and still won. He did it at Memorial, and he did it somewhere else as well. But it's pretty rare, and it's pretty rare to lose that many. So he can do it. He can go against the grain and win a golf tournament by losing 2.5 strokes putting. But honestly, he's putting better than that right now. If you go back and look at his form leading into last year, he was miserable. He lost 5.5 strokes putting at the match play. He lost 7 at the Valero. He lost 1.3 and missed the cut at the Masters. Then he snaps off and wins this golf tournament. So he was in much worse form last year when he won this golf tournament than he is right now. So that's interesting. But I think the last 2 are probably my favorite. They're cheaper, and I think we're kind of splitting hairs a little bit, and these guys have just as much upside. Yes, Patrick Cantlay is a very slow player, right? I mean, it's agonizing to watch. It's difficult to watch, but at the end of the day, if you give me this stat profile, it's going to be something that I'm pretty excited about. It is worth mentioning again. I've mentioned this a handful of times. He is an equipment free agent. He is not on an equipment deal. And it is really telling when guys are not on equipment deals what they end up choosing and how it impacts their play. And after a little bit of a slow start to 2023, he has gotten that equipment dialed in, and he is unbelievable right now. So let me do this. Let me go to the power rankings. Let me do just the last 20 rounds, because that's basically since Cantlay has gotten completely dialed in with these new clubs that he's using. And we're just going to sort by strokes gained, ball striking. This is the power rankings on RickRunGood.com. Scotty Scheffler is the best player in the world, ball striking over the last 20 rounds, 2.3 strokes gained per round. Patrick Cantlay is second, 2 strokes per round. Then a gap to Victor Hovland at 1.64, Gary Woodland 1.57, and someone we're definitely going to talk about at $7,000, Sam Stevens at 1.53. That is beyond elite level stuff, and it's resulting in good results. 3rd at Riviera, 4th at Bay Hill, 19th at the Players. He got out of his group, but did not advance further than that at the match play. And then he finished T14 at the Masters. He has not putted nearly as well as we saw during that stretch last summer where he got really, really hot, and then he put an exclamation point on it with the win at the BMW Championship. It was actually a successful title defense. I do not worry about that as much. Little bit worrisome, but very, very little. Not something that I would be too worried about, especially because when you flip this around and look at his history around Harbortown, it's 1 missed cut in 2021 and 4 top 7 finishes in his 5 trips. It's been absolutely splendid stuff, and he has had some big gains on these putting surfaces in his career. So Patrick Cantlay, growing to be one of my favorite options for the week. I do think this is a lot of golf though. So he played match play. I guess he got a week. No, I guess he hasn't played that much, right? So he played the Players, then he took the week off, and then he played the match play. Then he took 2 weeks off between the Players and the match play, took the week off between the match play and the Masters. Will play Masters, RBC Heritage, and then I'm sure Zurich with Xander, right? So he'll play 3 weeks in a row. So I guess it's not really that big of a deal. Okay. So good news out of the statistical camp for Patrick Cantlay, and then Colin Morikawa, who we saw is the best adjusted course fit in this field. Nobody gets a better jump based on his skill set and what this golf course asks for than Colin Morikawa. He should be licking his chops around this place, and I think he is. The T10 at the Masters was well-rounded. He gained strokes in every single category. His T3 at the Players' Championship was the elite approach play that we come to expect from Colin Morikawa. If you look at his history around here, at RBC Heritage, you're not going to be super surprised that he's never missed the cut, and he's gotten T64, T7, T26. This is a very bizarre statistical thing. He gained exactly, I had to double check to make sure that this was not a typo, but it's right, exactly 10.37 strokes ball striking in each of the last 2 years. Isn't that bizarre? Now, he has hemorrhaged strokes on the putting surfaces in his 12 rounds around this golf course, but he's putting better. Let's see how he was putting leading into those other RBC Heritage. Okay, not well. Lost 3 out of 4 leading into the RBC Heritage last year. Let's go to 2021 RBC Heritage, which should be here. Wasn't putting particularly well. He lost in 2 out of 3, but his biggest gain was 0.09. A couple starts before that, he was giving it away at Riviera. Remember, he gave away 7.5 at Riviera, then he won in his next start. That was fun. And then I want to see what he did in 2020. Yeah, he was hemorrhaging strokes with the putter. So he is much better on the surfaces now than he was in any other edition of this event. I would not, if you just made me I think I would just pick, if you just gave me 2 guys versus the field, I feel like it's Cantlay and Morikawa, honestly. I'll give you Scheffler, which is scary. I'll give you Spieth, scary. I'll give you Rahm, scary. But man, these two are setting up really, really well. And they've got, outside of Spieth's victory, obviously, they've got the best course history around this place. Actually, let me do one more thing before we do that. I want to sort the strokes gained, the power rankings by salary here, and just look at the last 36 rounds or so. That's generally the most predictive that we get, and just kind of compare and see if there's anything that stands out about these 10K guys. Not really. All of them very, very good from tee to green. Spieth's been the worst, and it's at 1.2 in his last 36, which is phenomenal stuff. The only guy who has massive gains with the putter is Jon Rahm. No surprise there. Scheffler's been the best off the tee. Scheffler's been the best on approach. Morikawa's right behind. Okay, I just wanted to see if there was anything that super stood out here, and I did not find it. The 9K range. So this is led by Victor, who, had to play with Patrick Cantlay in that final group and struggled on Sunday and still finished 7th at the Masters. We'll pull up his stat profile here. It's strange. I don't think there's a lot of golf courses in the world that are bad for Victor, right? The way he drives it, especially in the ball striking, the way he hits the ball, if whether a golf course requires distance, whether it requires accuracy, whether it requires a combination of both, generally works out pretty well for him. So I don't know if I envision a scenario, and I hope I'm wrong, that he gains 3, 4, 5, or 6 strokes off the tee this week. I just don't know if that's out there, if everyone is kind of playing to specific positions and whatnot. But what I could see is a week where he gains 4, 5, 6, or 7 strokes on approach. I think I could see that path. Now, he's a very, very aggressive player. We saw it all week long. He takes dead aim at a lot of these flags and will probably miss more greens than he should because of that. Now, this is not a golf course that has a lot of difficulty around the greens. I actually want to see, it's just going to be 1 year. He only played here in 2020, but I want to see what he did. Yeah. gained 3.2 off the tee, 4 on approach. He lost a little bit around the green and a little bit less with the putter, so not a big deal there. It was en route to a T21. I don't think there's going to be a scenario in which he loses a lot around the greens just because I don't think it's out there. I think they're going to be pretty straightforward shots. So I'm wondering if we can get Victor on a golf course that rewards ball striking, that is not going to be as bad in terms of around the green play. And then we saw, that putter can get hot, man. We saw it. And he's gained strokes putting in 3 out of his last 4. And the only one he lost in was the match play, which is very weird data-wise. So I think this could be a sneaky good spot for Victor, and I do wonder if sentiment is down on him just a little bit because of the 7th place finish at the Masters, which felt like he was falling off the pace. Cam Young is here as well. So Cam Young, I fell into this trap last year, and I don't necessarily want to do it again. Where Cam Young, what we learned about Cam Young is that his game travels, and it literally does not matter what type of golf course that he plays on. He is going to find success. He is able to have success at the Open Championship at St. Andrews. He's able to have success at Harbortown. He's able to have success at the PGA Championship and at Quail Hollow. Just like a bunch of different courses, it doesn't matter. Since joining up and connecting with Paul Tesori, he's got a runner-up finish of the match play and a T7 at the Masters, and this is a golf course and a tournament that he finished. I think it was 3rd. No, I guess it was one of his runner-up finishes last year, wasn't it? Oh, no, it was T3. This wasn't even one of his runner-up finishes last year. So I really like what I'm seeing from the kid. I love that he's, we've talked about this a lot. He's plugged the leaks in the short game and the putter. I love everything about the way Cam Young is trending. So excited about the top of the 9K range. Let me tell you a little story about Tony Finau. And I don't know if this is fair or not, but here's what I see. And this is, again, I'm going to go back to this and say how unique it is that we are getting an elevated event with a huge influx of top players that don't really play here, right? I think that's so fascinating. On a course where this, the stickiness is above average, right? I think that that's really a fascinating dynamic for this week. And when I look on paper and say, is this a good spot for Tony Finau, right? Is this a good spot for Tony Finau? I think not really, right? I think his strengths of obviously being able to hit it far off the tee and gain a lot there, this place is not necessarily going to allow him to do that. And then in terms of accuracy, he's much less accurate off the tee than Max Homa. He's much less accurate off the tee than Victor Hovland, some of these other guys that you might be considering. And then I think, okay, does Tony Finau think that this is a good place for him? And I would argue the answer is no. Right? Because he never plays here. Tony Finau's been around for a long time, can play anywhere he wants. He played here in 2015, missed the cut. Played here in 2016, finished T39. That's not a good result if you're Tony Finau. And then he played here in 2020, which we've already talked about. Everybody played here in 2020. And he finished T33. I don't think this is a good spot for him, and I don't think he thinks this is a good spot for him. So I will probably not be involved in the Tony Finau stuff. And I don't know. It's just such an interesting stat profile. He's quietly piling up top 25 finishes, but are top 25 finishes good enough? Does anybody does this win you any money when he finishes T19 to Players? Probably not. When he finishes T20 at Bay Hill and T20 at Riv and T24 at Bay Hill, does that win you anything? Probably not. And I love what I'm seeing on the approach play, right? He's been phenomenal. I don't love this little spell he's gone through with some weak around the green play and some weak off the tee play, and the putter's kind of all over the place. I don't know. Tell me what you think. Is Tony Finau a good option? Am I reading too much into this? Am I trying to read the tea leaves and misinterpreting them? What do you think about Tony Finau? I'd be pretty willing to invest in Xander here. So this is it's kind of surprising that Xander has not had much success around this golf course, and I'm not really sure why. Let's pull up his results here. And it's been a couple of years since he's played. So he played 2020, obviously, but he also played the 2 years prior to that, and he hasn't finished better than T32. And you start looking at the results, and it's not one thing year over year. He hasn't particularly driven it well. He hasn't hit it well on his second shots. Some years have been better around the green. It's kind of bizarre. This is such an anti-Xander stat line. He never does this. He never loses in multiple categories. So maybe it is true that this place just is not a good fit for him. But when I look at what he has been up to, gaining so many strokes on approach dating back to the start of the calendar year. This improved short game, the putter that can gain you a 5. Yeah, I worry about the way he's been driving it, but he's back to gaining at the Masters last week. And to be priced at, what is he, 9,300? I mean, outside of like major championships where you usually get some pretty soft pricing, this is about as good as it gets on Xander. You know, the 2021 Hero, which is a 20-person field, he was only 8,700. The Tour Championship in 2021, he was 89. So we don't need, like, a full field event for the last couple of years. Like, you're just not getting this price on Xander. It's just not happening. So I do think there's value in trying to say, give me an elite player to figure it out on a golf course that he hasn't really figured it out on. It's been a couple of years since he's played it. He's a different golfer since then. I don't mind that one single bit, especially with how consistent that he generally is. And then the other guy here is, let's just look at Max real quick. The other guy was Justin Thomas, but he's actually in the next tier down. So let's just see what Max was up to last week. Oof. Yeah, so I think that there was a little bit of concern. If you guys read my newsletter, which you should, RickRunGood.com/newsletter, it gets delivered to your inbox with a bunch of little stat nuggets and things like that. There was a lot of concern for Max at the match play because he was basically the worst player to advance from his group. He got a lot of like just match play luck to get out of his group, and he played pretty poorly. Lost 7.5 strokes from tee to green. It was very un-Max of him. And then he lost 3 more strokes off the tee at the Masters. So now you've got like a loss of 7 off the tee. Now, could we make the case that that's all driver, right? Austin Country Club, you're hitting driver everywhere. Augusta National, you're hitting driver everywhere. You are not hitting driver everywhere here. So could we make an argument that his ability to club down and then lean into the stuff that has been working, which is basically everything else, should be a good opportunity for him? Is that fair? He's played here before. I don't think it's particularly great. T41, that was in 2020. He's a much different player since then. Gained 3 strokes off the tee that week. Just 1 week. But interesting. Maybe what I'll do in my newsletter this week is I'll try to go back and see that 2020 shot link and see what Max was hitting off the tee. I'm imagining it's not driver. I'm imagining it's playing back to a lot of positions. So that's pretty interesting. You know, to find a top tier player who's struggling only in one area of his game, that if he can basically avoid that area, could he find success? I think that's interesting. Justin Thomas is the next guy. He's at $8,900. I'm going to probably have to scroll very far to find Justin Thomas in a cheaper spot. So he has not been this cheap. Yeah, I'm going to go with ever. Here we go. Of course he did. The last time he was less than $8,900 or $8,900 was 5 years ago. It was the 2018 WGC FedEx St. Jude. He was $8,800. What did he do that week? Won the golf tournament. Yeah, we have not seen him this cheap since then. I've got the salaries back to basically the start of 2018. That's the only time JT has been less expensive. And he won it. Not that means he's going to win this week, but would you be all that surprised? Right? I mean, he was in the, let me show you the round by, I guess it's not really going to be, I'll show you his stuff. So here's his round by round stuff from last week. I mean, he gained 2.5 strokes on the field in round 1, and he was playing great until that resumption. So he had to finish his second round on, Saturday morning, and it was nasty and it was cold. That was when he did the walk and talk. And then he just had this stretch where he went bogey, double, and he made another bogey in like a 5, like he just missed the cut on like a 5-hole stretch. It was pretty ugly, but I don't think I necessarily want to like kill him for that. He finished T10 at the Valspar in the week before. He's gained strokes on approach in 5 of his last 6 individual rounds. The driver's been much better. This feels like a criminally wrong price on JT. Let's look at his heritage history. He's played here 4 times. He's never missed the cut. He has 2 top 11s. Finished T35 last year. Has routinely gained a stroke per round on approach. He had this one really, he lost across the board very ugly in 2016. But you know what? He made the cut though. So I bet you watch this. This is going to be really interesting. So in 2016, he lost 12 strokes to the field, but he made the cut and finished 75th. So I bet you he had one blow up round or two, maybe two really, really bad rounds. But let's dive deeper into this. We are in this now. So let's do all of his rounds at RBC Heritage for Justin Thomas and just see. Yeah, one really bad round. So he makes the cut on the number. He didn't play great, but he loses 2 strokes in round 1. He gains 2 strokes in round 2. He makes the cut. He loses 3.4 in round 3, but he gained strokes in both the ball striking categories. He lost 2.7 with the putter, and then he just absolutely blew up in round 4 and lost across the board and lost 9.7. So it's not really even that bad, all things considered. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's that horrible, and it was 7 years ago. I'm convincing myself on JT, aren't I? Yeah, I'm stuck convincing myself on JT. Okay, I think there's 2 other guys here that I'm probably most interested in: Tom Kim and Matt Fitzpatrick. I think this will be a pretty good litmus test for Tom Kim. You know, it's really hard to start your career basically by winning twice in 4 events, right? You win the Wyndham, you get into the playoffs, you have a great President's Cup, then you win the Shriners, and it's Tom Kim mania, right? Like, that's kind of hard. And he hasn't been as good since then, but he hasn't been bad. He finished T6 at the American Express. He finished T5 at the Tournament Champions. He just had a T16 at the Masters last week where he gained basically across the board. This will be a pretty good litmus test because for how long do we say, like, this guy's problem is distance? He's very accurate off the tee. He's a great approach player, yada, 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 right? Like if that is what we have truly believed about Tom Kim, then he's someone you have to pretty strongly consider for this week. And then the other one is Fitzpatrick. So Matty Fitzpatty, when healthy, when playing well, is probably a top, I don't know, is he a top 9 player in the world? Top 12 at least. And we've been waiting for like the healthy version of Fitzpatrick, and I don't know if we were ever going to find out like when that was going to be, but I'm very encouraged by the T10 at the Masters, where he gained 4.3 off the tee, which is something that he was doing routinely back here when he was healthy, right? Through the vast majority of 2022. He gained 4.9 on approach, which again, when healthy, that is what he does. And bizarrely lost 4 strokes around the green, which, listen, it's Augusta National. You can get away, or you can hit some really bad shots and have that pile up. It's one of his worst around the green performances ever. I think it's his 2nd worst ever. So that's probably not going to happen again. And he's putting well. And Fitzpatrick is, I love the all-around game here, right? He's not particularly long, but he's very accurate. He's a lot longer than he used to be. Great second shot player, generally a stout short game, and a strong putter. I'm sure he's played here before, right? If I was Matt Fitzpatrick, this is a place I would tee it up all the time. Oh, he's played here a ton. Yeah, absolutely. So he's got 8 starts here. His last 5 are a missed cut last year, T4, T14, T39, T14. So 3 top 15s in his last 5 trips. 4 of them have been cut makers. I'm in. I've seen enough, right? We were waiting to see something. I've seen enough. This is all I needed to see. I think it's a pretty stealthy stat line, and going to a place like this, I would rather try to be early on than late. The other guy that worries me would be Sahith, and I do wonder if he'll catch a little bit of steam because of the great finish that he had last week, and I'm so stoked for him. A 9th place finish at the Masters, his best finish at a major. Dude, like, so stoked for him. But it will be, I also don't even know if I mentioned that, like, it is going to be a jarring contrast for a lot of these guys going from Augusta National to Harbor Town, where Sahith could just hit it all over the park last week and get away with it. You are not going to be able to do that. And he is one of the least accurate drivers, 175th on the PGA Tour. And when he misses big, 142nd in distance from edge of fairway. He's also not even like crazy long. He's 69th in club head speed, 49th in driving distance on all drives. So it's like he's not even like, I don't even know if he gets the full advantage on the second shot. And then you look at some of the yardages, and I'm not a big proximity buckets guy, but there's a lot of shots that come from like 150 yards and in. He's like tour average. You go a little bit further back, he's worse than tour average. I just really, I'd be really impressed if he found a way to contend here. I just do not see that coming. He's a young guy. I doubt he's played here before. Oh, he has. Look at me. Played here last year. T70, lost strokes across the board. Not for me this week. 7K range. Let's see what we got. See what we got in the sevens. Actually, while I'm thinking about this, why don't I just go to the Holy Grail? I gotta get my mind off of. I'm like still stuck in, Masters mode here. I gotta get like into RBC Heritage history and being able to recall it a little bit faster. So let's go since 2015. So basically 8 years of I can't help myself. RBC Heritage history, sorted by strokes gained total. So a couple guys with small samples. Seamus Power has only played here once. He finished T6. Cam Young, only 4 rounds. He finished T3. Here's Cantlay, the best course history out of anybody. Here's Kuchar. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about Kuch. $7,700. He has 32 rounds around here. He's gaining 2 strokes per round. JT Poston, we're going to talk about him. The 7K range is pretty dominant in terms of course history, right? You get Seamus Power, Matt Kuchar, JT Poston, Justin Rose, Cam Davis. With no minimums of sample sizes, that's 5 of the top 7 players in terms of strokes gained. Harbortown are in the $7,000 range. Just looking for some other guys with. I am interested to see what Webb does. Now I don't even know who his new caddy is going to be, right? So does the split with Paul Tesori spark Webb in any way? Kind of be interested in seeing that. Okay, let's go back to this cheat sheet here. So a couple of guys in the 7K range. Let's talk Kuch. Talk about Kuchar real quick, because he's got basically, the best course history of anybody out here. We were just kind of looking at it a little bit, but let me deep dive into it because it's splendid. So back to 2008, he's never missed the cut. He's not only never missed the cut, but he has gained tee to green in 13 in a row. He had the win here in 14, the runner-up in 19. He finished T3 last year. I mean, just like a bunch of top 10s, a bunch of top 15s, a bunch of top 25s. Very, very good play across the board. And dare I say, he's playing great golf again. 8th at Riviera, missed the cut at Honda in the Players, and his last 2 were match play, which, like, at this point in Kuchar's career, like, is he just going to play well to places I guess not, because he played well at Riviera, right? Like, places that you expect him to play well. T7 at Sony, plays well to match play. Then in his last start, T3 at the Valero, well rested, going to a place he loves. Tough. Kind of love that for him. Who else was in this 7K range that I wanted to point out? You guys know that I'm a Keegan believer. 7,900, finished 23rd at the Masters last week. Sure, no problem there. Just like no history around this place. I do worry. I'm really torn on this one. This is another one I'm pretty torn on. Wyndham Clark. I have been making money hand over fist on Wyndham Clark this year, and he's been nothing short of phenomenal. I love his stat profile. Is this a new golfer? Because if it's a new golfer, I might give him a chance around this place. But I think if you zoom out career-wise, this is not a good spot for Wyndham Clark, right? He hits it long, generally quite inaccurate, but he's been better recently. And now his approach plays like nuts. Never finished better than 35th here. He's lost multiple strokes on approach in 3 out of his 4 trips. I don't think on paper this is a good spot for him, but it might be a sneaky guy to say he's a different player now. Because his stats kind of look like he's a different player now. This is by far the best golf he has ever played in his entire life. So pretty torn on Wyndham Clark. Might convince myself one way or another. We'll see by the time we get to the live chat Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see what Wyndham Clark has to do. Pretty out on Taylor Montgomery, which is hurtful to my heart. But I think there's already kind of some narrow paths to the top for Taylor Montgomery, which require him to gain a ton of strokes with a putter. And yes, he's long, which doesn't matter here. And he's inaccurate, which does matter here. And he's hemorrhaging strokes off the tee and on approach. And I don't think he is particularly well suited for a wedge fest, despite the fact that he's 37th from 125 to 150. He's also 130th from just inside that and 157th from just outside of that, which is why these buckets are kind of garbage. But you get my point. He misses a lot. He misses big. I just think it's a very, very narrow path for him to get to the top of the leaderboard. Not so narrow for Hoagie. This is another one that doesn't make sense, and maybe it's just the something about this golf course. On paper, this should be a pretty decent spot for him, and he's never really had it. I think a T25 is his best finish. Yeah, 5 trips, 3 missed cuts. T25 in 2021 is his best finish, but on paper, this should be a pretty decent spot for him. He's coming off that lightning hot finish to the Players Championship a couple of weeks ago. Certainly someone to consider. Okay, so the other two that stand out are a little bit lower here. So Poston's here. This is such a JT Poston course, right? And he actually finished strong on Sunday at the Masters and moved his position from like 50th to T34. So now he's got T34 at the Masters, gets out of the match play group, wins his group, and then finished T10 at Valspar. So he's vibing right now. And this is such a JT Poston place. Be accurate. You don't have to be long. Get it dialed in. Roll the rock. He's got 3 top 8 finishes in his 4 trips here. It's like, yeah, like that's such a JT Poston spot. And then let me show you, technically, the hottest golfer in the field. It's Ben Martin, $7,100. Technically the hottest. And why I say that is I go to the trends tool and I'll show you last 36 rounds, Ben Martin is gaining 0.81 strokes to his own baseline. So you take what Ben Martin usually is over 100 rounds, compare the 36 that we've got dialed in here, and he is nearly a full stroke better than that. It's the biggest gap for anyone. Now, is Ben Martin as hot as he's ever been? Still better than is he better than Colin Morikawa? No, but I'm saying he's playing out of his mind right now, and he's doing it in a way that's very sustainable. What you don't want to see is this. You don't want to see. Sorry, Sam. Love Sam. Sam Ryder's like the 10th hottest golfer, but he's doing it all with the putter. It's basically just saying he's been hot with the putter, right? Ben Martin is gaining all of it from tee to green. Now he's gaining a little bit with the putter, very small, but he has found something. Approach play is up a half a stroke per round to his 100-round baseline. See, that's where Wyndham Clark's even better than that on approach, which is like, that's why I'm having such trouble fading him. Fowler, Minwoo, also pretty big gains there as well. But technically, Ben Martin is the hottest player in the field. He's right here. So this quadrant, this chart here, these 4 quadrants, show you like who's on the verge of a breakout. Ben Martin's in a pretty good spot. Not the perfect spot, but a good spot. Ricky Fowler's in a good spot. Rose is in a good spot. The best spots are like Hostler, Garrick Higo, Terrell Hatton, Wyndham Clark, Matt Wallace, like those guys. She says they're playing better than their average from tee to green, and then they are getting a little bit unlucky with the putter. So good to see those guys. But yeah, Ben's been great. T10 at Valero, T8 at Punta Cana, hasn't missed a cut since the Farmers. He's got 4 top 15s in his last 6, and he's got a lot of experience here. It's a lot of okay experience, but we've already just said that he is a much different player now. So he's played here 8 times. He's only missed the cut twice. His best finish was a T3 in 2014, and he's the best he's ever been right now. Pretty interesting. Ben Martin, $7,100. I thought there was also somebody at $7,000 even that I wanted to point out, but I'm not. Oh, Sam Stevens. Yep. Okay, that was the other guy. So speaking of guys who are hot and striking it well, it took a little bit for Sam Stevens to get going in this rookie year, right? Which is normal. That's what happens on the PGA Tour. And now we're starting to see some great play. So he finishes 15th in Puerto Rico, misses the cut at Valspar. Then he goes T3 at Punta Cana, runner-up at Valero, gains 8.5 strokes on approach at the Valero Texas Open. He's a big gainer off the tee, or a consistent gainer off the tee. He can get hot with the putter. This is a pretty good stat profile we're building. This looks like a golfer who's like figuring it out, right? Immediately out of the gate on the PGA Tour, I'll scroll up so you can see, he basically loses strokes to the field in like 8 consecutive starts. Not big losses, but just like missing cuts, down 1 or 2, whatever. Not a huge deal. Then he starts to find it at Farmers, carries it into Pebble, loses a little bit at Honda. Great week in Puerto Rico, misses the cut on the number at Valspar, and then those 2 great weeks that we talked about. So we've got a guy who's tightening it up. He's raising his floor. He's showing a little bit of ceiling. He's doing it in a pretty good way. He's $7,000. So I do like that from Sam Stevens. The $6,000 range, let's see what this can unearth here. Not a lot I'm super excited about. This is like on paper, definitely a Brendan Todd place, right? Let's do a deep dive on the Todd father. So on paper, really good spot for him. We'll see how he's done recently. He's made 3 straight cuts, no better than 27th, but that was the Players' Championship, so pretty stacked there. Finished second at Pebble Beach. What is Pebble Beach? It's a very positional golf course, so that is a similarity here. He has played here a bunch. I'm counting 7 times. Made the cut in 4, highlighted by his 4th place finish in 2015. He's got back-to-back top 40s in his last 2 trips. It's okay. I think there are definitely worse spots that you could roll out Brendan Todd for $6,900. Joel Damon will probably catch a little bit of steam, right? Popular golfer, $6,900, very accurate off the tee. I mean, you could say, let's do a little bit of look at both of these guys here. So let's do Joel Damon. So here's Damon, who has, I think, some pretty decent history around here. A couple top 15 finishes. He's got 3 trips, T12. He finished T48 in the year it was a stacked field, and then T16 the year prior. So he's going to get closer to a stacked field this year than previously, but he's a better golfer now, and he's been all right. The other one I wanted to look at was, what's his name? JJ Spawn. Because I feel like he's been playing better golf as of late. Yeah, got out of his group at the match play, did it in a really good way. Finished T22 at the Valero, did not qualify for the Masters. You know, he missed a couple of cuts here at some big-time events. I mean, he has not played well at the elevated events, right? He misses the cut at the Players, misses the cut at the API, misses the cut in Phoenix. Farmers is not an elevated event, but he missed the cut there. Played well at the Tournament Champions T5, and he played well at Riviera, so I guess it's just a mixed bag. But on paper, this should be a pretty good spot for him. You know, the ability to drive it well, hit greens. Hasn't had much success. His best result was T6. That was in his first start, 2017. He hasn't been nearly as good since then. Interesting. What else do we have in the bottom half of this range? You guys know I'm still in on Higo, but I don't think this is particularly a great week for him. He's going to have to be much more accurate off the tee than he normally is, but maybe he'll be able to club down a little bit. I'm not super optimistic about that happening. What else do we have here? This is a tough little range, but are we just going to let Nico Echeverria go unchecked at 6,200? Let me just make sure there's nobody else down here. Are we gonna let that happen? T28 at the Valero. Missed the cut at the Valspar, missed the cut at the Players, but won in Puerto Rico. Those are his last 4 starts. And he missed 4 cuts before that. Man. All right, so not particularly great, but I like the upside. T12 at the Sony, coming off of a good start. I mean, he's nearly min-priced. That for a guy who won 4 starts ago, doesn't that feel a bit hairy to anyone else? Am I the only one who thinks that? Okay, maybe the model thinks that. Let's run a model. Custom model, RickRunGood.com. Literally hundreds of stats that you can put in. Do anything you want. It'll pump out your rankings. Then you can take those. You can generate lineups and import them directly into DraftKings. So, what do we know? Off the tee, we have got to do good drive percentage. I think it's important. 20. Strokes gained approach. I think it's going to be massive, right? I mean, it's massive for this week, and it's always massive. So let's do something massive, like strokes gained approach last 24 for 30. Seems like a lot. I want a little bit around the green, and then a little bit with the putter, but not much. So let's just do strokes gained around the green last 50, 10. Strokes gained putting last 24, 10. Okay, so we still have 30 left. I want to do course history and do strokes gained Harbor Town for 10. I want to do, let's do something freaky like strokes gained par 4. There is the extra par 4 around here. So we've got 10 left. Could also do like short courses. I don't think we normally do. Let's do that. That's one we haven't used in a while, right? We'll be able to do that. Let me just see if there's anything else could do like, well, we did good drive percent. There's so many great options. So many great options. Okay. So my number 1 golfer is John Rahm. No surprise, right? He's best player in the world this week. How about 2 and 3? Morikawa, no surprise. Cantlay, love it. How about, Finau 4? Why? Good driver. Yeah, short courses. Does well on short courses. Does well on par fours. Does well on approach. Oh, boy. Scotty 5, Max 6, Spieth 7, Chris Kirk 8. Yeah, it does kind of feel like a Chris Kirk week, doesn't it? Xander 9, Victor 10. Just trying to see if there's any other notables here. Kuchar at $7,700 is 13th. So how about that for 11, 12, 13, our very own Amen corner of the power rankings? 3 guys from the 7K range. Russell Henley 11, Justin Rose 12, Matt Kuchar 13. Ben Martin $7,100, 16th. Brendan Todd, $6,900, 18th. Sam Stevens, 7,000, 24th. Interesting. Wyndham Clark's 29th for me. Yeah, Fitzpatrick, so Fitzpatrick's 39th because he's been in a slump. So I went pretty short term on a lot of this stuff. So he's kind of getting the slump there. If I went longer term, he would be a lot more popular. Sahith, 49th. Yeah, that's kind of the problem here. Just kind of scrolling through looking. Dead last, Ernie Els probably wins. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We can run another model on Wednesday and put in anything you guys want, obviously. We're going to do live chat. We had an absolute electric live chat last week for the Masters. Everything was awesome. I'm hoping you guys truly enjoyed it. It was a great week, and we're just rolling on with more great golf. It's a great time to be a golf fan. So much appreciate everybody. Tweet me at RickRunGood. Go sign up for RickRunGood.com. Sign up for my newsletter, all that fun stuff that I probably should have asked you for 45 minutes ago. But appreciate y'all. Talk to you soon. Good luck.